But those moments when we're really out of sorts with ourselves and, the world, there used to be this little song when I was a kid, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, think I'll eat some worms, when we're in that kind of a moment. And then when I asked them, well, what really makes you feel connected? What really makes you feel like you are centered and grounded? And as soon as they start telling me whatever that is, their face lights up. And then the next question is always key. Are you doing that? And most often the answer is no. It's no. Because when we are actually doing those things that make us feel connected, and what's interesting is that those things that make us feel connected often don't take a heck of a lot of time, a lot of times really don't cost that much money. It could be gardening, it could be cooking, drumming, playing with the kids, looking at the stars, taking a walk on the beach, blowing bubbles. I mean, really, the things where in that moment you feel lost. Drawing, painting, even being of service, where in that moment your problems and your little world and everything that you are worried about are not front and center in your mind and in your consciousness. Everybody has those, and whatever that is, do it. Do it often, do it a lot, be uncompromising about it. When I say uncompromising, it's where you schedule that in and everything else revolves around that. Most of us try to sneak our spirituality and the things that make us feel grounded and connected. We try to work that in around our schedule when it's the other way around. And here's something I find interesting. We get mad at other people for not respecting that sacred space of ours, whatever that is that we do. We get mad at them for intruding upon it, but we're the first ones to give it up. Notice what I'm saying. I remember back in my corporate days when I was a real estate investment manager with Prudential. And it was these very, very large projects. We're talking the skyscrapers and the regional malls and all that kind of stuff. And there was that notion of the deal point. Okay? Now, what the deal point was something that we just had to have. Non-negotiable. Without this, there's no deal. Now, the way that we were trained was to basically go through all the negotiations, get everything that you want, and then throw the deal point in at the end. Okay? When everybody's invested so much that nobody's going to want to back out. But I learned the other way was far more effective. Going into the negotiations, these are my deal points. Let me find out what your deal points are, like what are those real bottom lines, and let's work together to make sure that we can come up with something that we both can live with. And I have learned to since do that in my life and do that in my relationships. Okay? So think about that. What I find is that too often we negotiate away our spiritual deal points. And it stops being a deal point once you negotiate it away. Okay? Once you're willing to give it up, it's not a deal point anymore. Okay? Are you with me? Okay? And we need to be unrelenting, whatever that is. If I need my meditative space, I need my meditative space, period, end of report. And when you stand on something that is that sacred for you, everybody else will respect it. Catch what I'm saying? Everybody else will respect that. I'm having flashbacks of my grandmother, my paternal grandmother that lived in Los Angeles. Her soap operas were a deal point. Don't call between 1 and 3. Don't do it. She's not picking up the phone. You're not getting anything out of her. Don't call. And anybody who knew Beulah did not bother her on the weekdays between 1 and 3. Are you with me? Now, I'm not sure that was the most holy and sacred thing in the world, but it drives the point home. Okay? We're giving up our own deal points. It isn't even like other people are having to do it. We're not standing on it and saying, look, this is my point of sacred connection. This is it. Now, let me tell you a little bit about how we run this spiritual community, which is very different than what you find in a typical, like, quote-unquote, church situation. We're not giving you a list of rules that say do this, 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 this. That's not what we're doing. We're giving you universal spiritual principles, okay? And then helping you have tools to figure out how to apply those principles to your life. But each of us has our own work to do, and it's not always the same work. If we say, for example, we know that in fear, most human beings have 3 basic responses, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. Yes? You would agree with that? Okay. That's something that we all need to heal on. Whatever that Neanderthal first response that's coming from our reptilian brain, the moment that we come up against any danger, anything like that, some of us are going to fight, some of us are going to freeze, and some of us are going to flee. Okay? What the fight people need to do to heal is different than what the freeze people need to do, which is different than what the flee people need to do. Okay? It's like the fight people need to learn how to back down. The freeze people need to know how to show up. The fight people need to know how to walk away. The runaway people need to learn how to stay. Okay? Everybody has their own work to do. Okay? And that's part of the reason, and there are a lot of programs. I mean, it's not like any one particular one, but that's part of the reason why programs like what Ben is going to be doing with the Enneagram on Tuesday night become important. They do. And even I've grown to have a bit of respect, more respect for the Enneagram. And he and I have had numerous conversations about how to merge that in with the greater spirituality, and it's a really good blend. It really is. So personally, I've never taken the Enneagram class. But he's explained to me that I was an 8, and I served on a panel for him of the 8s, and I was nailed. There's no question. There was no question. When we went through, like the little test or whatnot, or, who are you, that I'm there. And it was really helping me to see, the work that I needed to do. But the work that we all need to do is sacred. See, everything about our life is sacred. It isn't just there's this sacred part of me, and then there's this messed up part of me. And how can I nurture more the sacred part of me and not deal so much with the messed up part of me, or hide it, or run from it, or atone from it, or whatever that is that we think that we have to do. All of us comes on the drive. See? All of us. You're not leaving your ego behind. It just doesn't need to be in the driver's seat. It needs to be in the back seat. Okay? It needs to do the bidding of the Spirit. But most of us are trying to do the other way around. We think about all our goals, the things that we're good at, the things we're passionate about, and the things that we really want to do. And then we're trying to woo up all this spiritual magic to just poof, make us manifest all the things that we want to manifest. But what I tell you, what I know, is that yes, follow your passion. There's nothing wrong with following your passion. But your life's purpose is going to take you into areas you think you don't want to go. Your life's purpose is going to take you into places that are beyond your comfort zone. Your life's purpose is going to stretch you. So if everything's really comfortable, really hunky-dory, and you can figure out how to get from A to B, and you're going to feel really good about it all, you're not going deep enough. You're not going deep enough. Because your life's purpose is going to scare you half to death. And it is going to mean that you're going to have to reconcile. Your life's purpose is going to require that you go back to some of those bits and pieces of yourself that you left behind or left in shame and don't want to claim anymore. And that just may even be your heritage. Okay? It may not even be just your own personal life experience, but your heritage. Okay? Everything about us is sacred. Spirit wants to use everything about us. Life, the great I am, is not using us in spite of ourselves, but because of ourselves. See, the universe wastes nothing. Every single thing about you is part of your own unique ministry. Every pain you've ever gone through, every hurt, every victory, every educational course, every relationship, everything that you have ever done becomes part of the fodder for your sacred fire. And God, the great I am, will use it all. All of it. Not just part of it, but all of it. So if we're hiding it and we're not claiming it, then we're not putting it on the altar to be used. I don't care what it is. The addictions, the financial stuff, like whatever that is, it is there to be used. Now, in our motto, take this consciousness and multiply it. Part of what's underneath that is that each of us moves in very specific circles. That's what I like about this spiritual community, is we're not monolithic. We're not just, one culture, one economic group. We're not just the neighborhood church. I know we've done a lot of financing and refinancing here. And when I'm working with commercial lenders, and they'll ask questions like, what's the average income? And it's like, I don't even know what to do with that question. It's a legitimate question for most churches because they're in a certain neighborhood that's a certain socio-demographic population, and these things. But we're coming here from all different walks of life. Are you with me? All different walks of life. And each of us has spheres of influence. Spheres of influence. Because of our great diversity here, we all have spheres of influence. So there are people that you have access to, I don't have access to. Can I talk about us? Okay. So I'm putting Benjamin Saltzman on the spot here again. So he and I have been working together for years, and I was his coach for a long time. So when he got engaged, and that's a long story too, but when he got engaged, I flew to Massachusetts to marry, he and Karina. So how many acres is this? 20. Okay, so his family has this compound right outside of Boston. What's the area? What's that? Manchester, right? Manchester. Yeah, in Manchester, Massachusetts. It's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. And it was the closest I think I'll ever come to being with the Kennedys. That the way in which they've come together, this property has been with the family since the Civil War. These are Yankees. and just reading through the family books of his great aunts who were some of the founders of the United Negro College Fund, these great aunts who started the ladies' professional golf tour, and who were basketball players, back in the elite, women's colleges, and his mother's father who creates the heart-lung machine. Creates it. The one that keeps everybody alive in operations. And donates it. Donates it to science. It's like, wow. And this beautiful compound. Oh my God. I don't know how many of us were at the wedding, 60, 70 people or something, and we all stayed somewhere on this compound. And not saying that he was growing up in filthy, rich money himself, but there's a legacy. Do you get what I'm saying? Like this history. And he was shy on diversity issues, and I remember looking at him and saying, dude, are you kidding me? The kind of access that you have. Stand in it. Just stand in it. Okay? And he's standing in it now. And now he's got CEOs of, billion-dollar corporations and whatnot that he's working with because he has access. You know what I'm saying? He knows there are locker rooms I'm never going to get in. Are you with me? There are going to be golf courses I never play on. There are going to be places that there are access. There are people in the room who have 12-step, who are in 12-step programs. I've never been in recovery, not from substance abuse. I've been doing my own recovery program in relationships, but there's a credibility I don't have in 12-step groups. Are you with me? That other people in the room do have. Okay? I'm not strong in a lot of other languages. There are people in the room who speak all kinds of languages, who have access. Take this consciousness and multiply it. Take it out to wherever you are. In Scripture, Jesus told his disciples, wherever you are, blend in. Blend in. He said to the Jew, be a Jew, to the Greek, be a Greek. Like whatever you have to do, I'm not saying that you give up, quite the contrary. Stand in where you are, but don't stand in it so much that you're alienating other people. Are you with me? Where everybody and everything is sacred. And when you get to the point where you feel like you're so sacred that you're able to look down at other people, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And I remember one of those spirit letters, I loved it. When it was talking, it's in your deepest intent. And it was this challenge to us on the spiritual path. And the voice was so strong, and it just said, how dare you? How dare you use your relationship with me as an excuse not to be in relationship with other people? Catch that. How dare you try to use not even try. How dare you use your relationship with me as your excuse not to be in relationship with other people? That's not the way that this thing goes. Okay? When you really start to feel connected, when you really know that you are divine, there is a fundamental respect that you start to have. A fundamental respect that you start to have for other people, for their traditions, and for knowing God. When you look at the really good, great religious leaders, and I'm talking about the ones that win the Nobel Peace Prize and that kind of stuff, you don't win the Peace Prize sitting on a mountaintop just being peaceable. That's not how you win the Peace Prize. You win the Peace Prize by overcoming. Okay? You win the Peace Prize by being sacred. You win the Peace Prize by still embracing and loving the oppressors because you understand that they too are sacred. You're never going to find anybody who's of any stature at the level of a Peace Prize or a social justice or social change that's going to stand on their religious tenet and say they're the only ones that's right and everybody else is wrong. They're not going to do it. The Dalai Lama's not going to do it, and it doesn't make him less Buddhist. Desmond Tutu's not going to do it, and it doesn't make him less of an Episcopal priest. It's not going to happen. Even Malala, the last youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner, has this compassion. Are you with me? This compassion of understanding that things in everybody is still sacred. Everything about your life, the places where you've messed up, the places where you've been in pain, these aren't places where you've been bad. They're places that you were lost. They're the places where your soul was crying out because something within you was longing for something. The way that Beckwith always puts it, that behind every human aberration is a spiritual aspiration. Okay? Behind every human aberration is a spiritual aspiration. But can we put down the judgment long enough to see it? See? Can we put down the blame and the shame and the guilt and whatnot long enough to see it? Your journey is sacred. Everything about your journey, everything about everybody else's journey is sacred. It's sacred. Sacred doesn't mean that it was the highest and the best it could have been. That's not what I mean. When I say it's sacred, is that underneath it all, there is still the possibility of redemption. That underneath it all, there's always a possibility for reconciliation. That underneath it all, there's always a possibility for wholeness. And you know, the irony to me is, the great irony, we say there's separation of church and state. Okay, but you can never separate politics and spirituality. Catch that. You can separate the institutions, but every politic is going to have a worldview. It's going to have some perspective of where it's coming from about the world, what it thinks it is. And ours is written right there in the preamble of our declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that you can't even argue them. It says that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator. Oh my, that is such a huge spiritual manifesto. Endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Inalienable. Can't be taken away. Because they are an endowment from the Creator. Not that the law gave it to us, but an endowment from the Creator. Now, you know, let's not even get into the founding fathers and blah, blah, blah. But there's a spiritual truth that's there. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like we used to say, the truth will be told even if it takes a liar to tell it. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. The irony is that if there were an American hymn, do you know what it would be? Amazing Grace. If there were an American hymn, it would be Amazing Grace. This song. Even President Obama was singing it at the eulogy that he gave for Pastor Phelps. The lyricist was a slave trader. He was a slave trader. The music is an old African mourning song that he could hear on those ships. I once was lost, and now I'm found. He saw the light of his ways. And it's so interesting to me that that's our American hymn. And if we would just live that hymn, if we would just be that hymn that speaks of what I'm talking about, this kind of redemption, then no matter what it is that we've done, or no matter how lost that we've become, there is this redeeming thing called grace. This redeeming thing that's called grace that can turn it all around. That can turn it all around. Holy, it's not in the ritual. You can attend to the letter of the law, but not the spirit. Jesus would speak of this a lot. He'd say, it's not good enough to not murder your brother if you're killing him with your words. Technically, you didn't murder them, but you're killing them with your words. Don't try to use the church as a front. Don't come with all your gifts and your alms and all the rest of that. Just go home. Don't even bring it up in here. If there's aught that you have against your brother, if there's stuff that's still there, handle it. Make peace. Don't try to buy your way into salvation. That can't cover up the ookiness in your heart. Okay? This idea we have to do the work. Why are you worried about the splinter in your brother's eye and you got a beam in yours? Do the work. So can you imagine for a moment? Think about all those people you're in judgment of, and perhaps it's yourself. What difference would it make if you saw their lives as a holy journey back to themselves? Okay. Not a journey away from the family, away from you, away from truth, but a journey back to themselves. Wow. How different would that be? How different would that be? And I'm not saying you have to be an enabler. I'm not saying that you have to do anything. What I'm saying is that we don't have the right to stand in judgment. Because the moment we're in judgment, we have forgotten the sanctity. Judgment and holy can't occupy the same space. They can't. Anger, resentment, and freedom cannot occupy the same space. See? And when you get into that place of the sacred, you know you're free. You know you're free. There's a story I'll tell sometimes about this guy that used to study with me when I was in Los Angeles. I'll never forget this conversation. We're in my living room. I used to have a little townhouse in Silver Lake. I was a new practitioner at the time. This had to be like mid-60s, 80s or something like that. And he was saying how he had come to our spiritual tradition. He'd gotten, I don't know, something like 4 DUIs that he had never handled or taken care of. So he wound up spending 90 days in LA County Jail. In between the sentencing, or the last time that he got the DUI, and when he went to jail, he dried out. He dried out. But I love the way he put it. He wasn't on the victim, villain, hero triangle. He wasn't on, it was just a fact. He was like, okay, this 90 days has my name on it. And this is what he said. He said, they think they're punishing a drunk. He said, that guy didn't exist anymore. Listen to this. That guy didn't exist anymore. But from karmic and karmic effect, the 90 days was still there for him to go through. But you know what he did? He took the Science of Mind textbook into county jail, and in 90 days, he read the Science of Mind textbook from cover to cover. That's what he did. Can you feel the difference here? Because he thought of himself as sacred. Whatever that was driving him to the drinking, see, the drinking's not your problem. The drinking is just the evidence you got a problem that you'll never be able to see until you stop drinking. Stopping drinking's not the answer. Oh, baby, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. Okay? But he didn't go in. Do you feel the difference? The 90 days had his name on it, but he didn't go in like that. He went in like, I'm on a journey. I was lost, and now I'm found. And yeah, I might have to do jail, but how can I transform this jail experience into something that supports who I am today? Are you with me? Okay. So many of us may have that equivalent of that 90-day jail sentence with our name on it. Whatever that is. It could be a health challenge. It could be a financial matter. It could be a matter of the family, of the home. It could be whatever. Maybe it's not 90 days. Maybe it's not 30. Okay? But we change on the inner level, okay? And it takes a little while for the outer world manifestation to catch up. Are you with me? So spiritually, we're always a few steps ahead of what it looks like. Which is why don't judge people and stuff by what it looks like, because you don't know what's cooking underneath. See, you don't know what's cooking underneath. There's always this little gap between what's happening in the absolute and what can come into manifestation. Now, I realize it's a little crazy making when there's this new evolved you that's seeing yourself as sacred, and you're looking around at all this mess that you're in that's still a reflection of the prior consciousness. Anybody know what I'm talking about? So what do you do at that moment? What has the focus of your attention? Is the focus of your attention on the frustration and the judgment that you have for all this stuff that you're in? Or do you keep with the vision of the light that's pulling you forward? See? And sometimes it looks like it gets better before it gets worse before it gets better. Because all the stuff that has to be cleaned up cleans up. We've been hiding it. We've been hiding it. But in the process of healing, it's like the cupboard doors are open. The rug is pulled back. And it can feel overwhelming sometimes. But that's just the cleansing process. That's just the sacredness of the journey. Isn't that great? That God is just so thorough. But isn't that what you want? See, if you go into the hospital, and let's just say you go in because of a heart trouble, okay, But lo and behold, it turns out there's something wrong with your kidneys. Okay? It's going to take a little bit longer to recover and all the rest of that. But are you going to go, God, I want to get out of here. Just fix my heart. Don't worry about the kidneys. We'll deal with those later. Don't we want it all healed? Okay? But do you feel that way about your life? Okay? Can you say that to God about your life? Okay? Because we'll get into God, do something about my finances, but, I really don't have time to deal with this relationship stuff right now. So let me just cruise on. Don't rock that boat. Just give me some money. Okay? Just don't heal everything. Just, I don't want to disturb don't disturb it. Can you just do this part? But it's sacred. Okay? It's sacred and it comes as a whole. It comes as a whole. And I'm going to end on this note about whole. That word in Scripture that so often in the King James Version is translated as saved. The definition of the word is whole. It's whole. So your faith has made you whole. That there is a wholeness that we're brought into. We think of it sometimes as being saved from some dire thing, saved from some malevolent energy force out there or whatnot that on the triangle. No, it's whole. We're brought back into a wholeness. A wholeness. Yes? Let yourself be whole. Your life is sacred. Let your life be sacred and whole. Breathe. Let's pray.